TIFU by accidentally going on a first date with my boss's wife. Let me just start by saying that I'm not a bad guy. I try to be respectful, I keep my head down at work, and I've never even gotten a parking ticket. So I still can't believe this happened. I work in a fairly large marketing agency in Chicago. It's the kind of place with ping pong tables and cold brew on tap, but also weekly anxiety attacks because your pitch didn't vibe with the client. Anyway, about a month ago, I decided to try dating again after a long dry spell. I was recently out of a 2-year relationship, and my friends were pestering me to get back out there. So, I downloaded a couple of dating apps. After swiping through more gym selfies than I cared to remember, I matched with a woman named Lisa. Lisa was stunning. Witty bio, cute dog in her pics, and she actually opened the conversation with a joke about SEO, which, given my job, was the equivalent of foreplay. We messaged back and forth for a couple days, then agreed to meet at this nice speakeasy bar downtown on Friday. Friday rolls around, and I'm nervous but excited. I get to the bar a little early, grab a table, and try to look casual while also not sweating through my shirt. Lisa walks in, and she's even prettier in person, like, make you forget your name pretty. We click instantly. Conversation is effortless. She laughs at my jokes. I pretend I know about French cinema. Just good vibes all around. She tells me she's in consulting, which is vague but common enough, and I don't press. I tell her I work in marketing, and she asks what agency. I name it. She pauses, smiles, and says, "Oh, wow, I think my husband knows someone who works there." Red flag? Maybe. But I brush it off. Lots of people know people. We end up staying at the bar for almost 4 hours. Drinks turn into snacks, snacks turn into more drinks, and eventually we're walking along the Riverwalk. At some point we kiss. It's perfect. We say goodnight and agree to see each other again. I go home floating. Now here's where the spiral begins. Monday morning, I'm at work, groggy but smiling like an idiot. I sit down at my desk and open Slack. There's a company-wide announcement. Team, please welcome back Derek Harrison as our interim VP of Strategy. Derek Harrison is a legend in our company. He'd been on sabbatical for almost a year, supposedly traveling with his wife and reconnecting. He's kind of a big deal. Used to be one of the youngest execs in the company, total hard-ass but brilliant. Also, the last time I saw him, I was very drunk at the holiday party trying to beatbox to impress the design team. Anyway, he's back. At 10 a.m., we have a team-wide meet and greet in the conference room. In walks Derek, looking tan and very in control. He gives a brief speech about being glad to be back, then starts casually chatting with people. Eventually, he gets to me. "You're the new guy in brand ops, right?" he asks. "Yep, that's me," I say, trying to seem confident. Then he squints at me. "You look familiar. Have we met?" My soul leaves my body for a second. I stammer something like, "Maybe at the holiday party?" He laughs. "Could be. That was a wild night. I think the coast is clear." But then he adds, "Hey, funny coincidence. My wife mentioned she met someone from here the other day. Said you guys chatted at a bar downtown. Maybe it was you." Now I'm sweating bullets. I try to laugh it off. "Small world, huh?" He smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, small world." I spend the rest of the day spiraling. I go back to Lisa's profile. It's gone. Unmatched. Deleted. Vanished. I don't have her number. I don't even know her last name. But I put 2 and 2 together fast. Lisa is Lisa Harrison, my boss's wife. The next few days are hell. Derek doesn't say anything, but he starts CCing me on every minor thing. He pops in during meetings I'm not even supposed to be in. At one point, he critiques my deck on a campaign I wasn't assigned to. I start feeling like I'm being watched. My coworkers notice it too. My buddy Jake even jokes, "Did you sleep with his daughter or something?" Oh, if only. I try to do damage control. I consider telling HR, but what would I even say? Hey, I unknowingly went on a date with a married woman and now her powerful husband wants me dead. There's no forum for that. Then, the nail in the coffin, I get called into a casual feedback session with Derek and my direct manager. They praise my work, then subtly suggest that I might be better aligned with a different team structure. They frame it like an opportunity, but we all know it's a soft push. A week later, I'm reassigned to a different department. Less visibility, less client interaction. Technically, I still have a job. But my career momentum just got curb-stomped because I made out with the boss's wife. I haven't heard from Lisa since that night. Part of me wonders if she did it on purpose. Like, maybe she and Derek were in some weird open relationship phase. Or maybe she just wanted revenge for something. I'll never know. I deleted the dating apps. For now, I'm sticking to my books, my dog, and my dignity, what's left of it. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. TIFU by accidentally sending a screenshot of my boss's Zoom meltdown to the entire company Slack. So this happened about 3 weeks ago, and I've only just now recovered from the embarrassment enough to write about it. It's been a whirlwind of HR meetings, awkward silences, and my slow descent into a new life philosophy that basically boils down to never hit send without checking twice. Let me set the stage. I work at a mid-sized tech company that prides itself on being remote first, which is basically just code for we live on Zoom and Slack. My boss, let's call him Greg, is the kind of guy who tries very hard to seem laid back, but clearly yells at his dog off camera between meetings. He wears band t-shirts from groups that broke up before I was born and uses words like synergy and bandwidth way too much. On this particular Monday, we had an all-hands Zoom meeting scheduled. Everyone was already on edge because Greg had hinted on Friday that there'd be some big structural announcements coming up. Now, in corporate speak, that can mean anything from a new snack brand in the vending machines to massive layoffs. Naturally, morale was lower than a limbo stick at a kindergarten birthday party. Anyway, the Zoom starts. Greg joins late, flustered, wearing a wrinkled t-shirt that said, "Kiss the developer." His mic is on as he joins, and before he realizes it, he mutters to himself, clear as day, "Jesus Christ, I can't keep pretending these idiots matter." You could feel the collective gasp from 137 muted microphones. He realizes the mic's on, fumbles to mute himself, then stares at the camera like a deer realizing the headlights aren't going to swerve. He quickly launches into a scripted, chirpy tone. "Hey team, great to see all your smiling faces." The rest of the meeting is a blur of corporate buzzwords and vague reassurances. But the damage is done. That one sentence, "I can't keep pretending these idiots matter," is now echoing in everyone's minds. Now, here's where I massively, irreversibly screw up. I'm in a private Slack channel with a few work friends, and I send them a screenshot of the moment right before Greg realized he was unmuted. You know the look. Eyes wide. Sweat forming. That "oh no" face. I caption it. "Mood when you forget your mix hot and call your team idiots." We're all laughing, roasting Greg gently, when I get the bright idea to save the screenshot to my desktop and add it to my Zoom fails folder. Yes, I have a folder. It's been a long pandemic. But in my sleep-deprived, caffeine-fueled haze, I accidentally dragged the image into the general company-wide Slack channel. The one with all 200-plus employees. The one that includes HR. The one that includes Greg. The image posts immediately. Slack doesn't give you an "are you sure?" when you drop something into the void. It just assumes you know what you're doing. Rookie mistake. Within seconds, reactions start rolling in. The laughing emojis come first, then the eyes emoji, then silence. Complete dead air. Then Greg replies. "Let's hop on a call." No punctuation. Just that. Like a message from the Grim Reaper. I get the notification that he's started a Zoom. Just me and him. My soul leaves my body. I join. He's already there. Not smiling. "Wanna explain what that was?" he asks, in the tone of a man trying very hard not to throw his laptop out a window. I try to play it off. "It was meant for a private channel. It was a joke. I didn't mean any harm. You shared a screenshot of a private, unintended comment that was not great, I'll admit. But then you shared it with the entire company. That's not something we take lightly. I nod like a bobblehead in a hurricane. Totally. I understand. Totally fair. Yup. Long story short, I get a formal HR warning. Not fired, but strongly encouraged to rebuild trust and refrain from meme-based communication during sensitive times. My Slack privileges are temporarily revoked. I have to email people like it's 2006. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that Greg has now fully overcorrected. He starts every meeting with just want to say I appreciate each and every one of you, and ends them with awkward finger hearts. He sends motivational quotes in the general channel every morning. There was a week where he signed off every email with one team, one dream. And everyone knows it's because of me. My coworkers now refer to the incident as the screenshot heard round the Slack. To make it worse, someone in marketing printed the screenshot on a mug as a joke and gave it to me anonymously. I can't use it. I keep it in a drawer like a cursed object. The only silver lining? I've learned the value of triple-checking where you're sending things. And I've become a Slack ninja. I've turned off drag and drop. I test messages in a private draft channel before posting. I'm like the Navy SEAL of workplace messaging now. But every time Greg says, "You guys matter," I feel like he's looking directly at me. And somewhere deep down, I know he still thinks we're all idiots. To faux by pretending I was fluent in French to impress a girl and getting dragged into a secret family intervention in Paris. So, this happened last year when I was studying abroad in Europe. I'm American, mid-20s, and at the time I was doing a semester in Belgium. I had enough French to navigate menus, ask for directions, and get through classes without looking like a complete idiot, but I was far from fluent. Enter Camille. She was a friend of a friend who lived in Paris, came to a few student parties in Brussels, and was, without exaggeration, the most effortlessly cool person I'd ever met. She had this chaotic energy, dressed like she didn't care but looked like a Vogue cover, and dropped existential thoughts mid-conversation like it was normal. Naturally, I was an idiot around her. A smiling, nodding, trying to sound deep idiot. One night, after a party, we ended up walking back to the dorms together. She mentioned how refreshing it was to meet someone who wasn't just another clueless foreigner, and said my French was actually très bien. This is where I made my first huge mistake. I didn't correct her. In fact, I leaned in. I told her I'd been speaking French since I was a kid because my grandmother was from Bordeaux. Total lie. My grandma is from Ohio and thinks croissants are just fancy biscuits. Camille's eyes lit up. She asked me to come visit her in Paris the next weekend. Obviously, I said yes, without thinking of the consequences. Fast forward to the following Friday. I take the train to Paris, practicing phrases on Duolingo and watching YouTube videos on how to sound more French. I even tried doing that annoying thing where you pretend not to understand English when someone talks to you in it. It lasted 5 minutes. A pigeon flew into the station and I yelped, "Oh hell no," loud enough to startle a baby. Camille picks me up and immediately starts rattling off in rapid-fire French. I smile and nod, throwing in the occasional oui and c'est vrai. She seemed to buy it, though I think I just came off as mysterious and brooding. That evening, she brings me to her family's apartment for what she calls a casual dinner. It is not casual. There are at least 12 people there, 2 courses already on the table, and her mother is wearing pearls. Her family is intense. The kind of French that doesn't pause for air and expects everyone to follow their dramatic debates about literature, politics, and whether smoking should be allowed at the dinner table. I am seated between her grandfather, who insists I call him Papy, and her cousin Leah, who gives me suspicious side-eye from the get-go. For the first 20 minutes, I keep up by mimicking facial expressions and laughing when everyone else laughs. I try not to make eye contact with anyone who might ask me a direct question. Then Camille proudly announces that her American friend is completely fluent in French and loves philosophical conversation. It was like a spotlight hit me. Her uncle, a chain-smoking lawyer with wild eyebrows, turns to me and says something I don't catch. I freeze. My brain does a somersault and lands directly in the panic zone. I try to reply with the only thing that comes to mind. Oui, j'aime la philosophie beaucoup. It's dead silent for a second. Then her grandfather bursts out laughing. He slaps me on the back and calls me un vrai penseur. Camille beams. I feel like I dodged a bullet. I did not dodge the bullet. After dinner, Camille's mom asks if I can stay the night to help interpret something the next morning. I try to decline, but Camille insists and says it'll be fun. I think it's going to be a visit to a museum or maybe translating at a bakery. What it turns out to be is a full-on family intervention for Camille's older brother, Julian. Here's the context I get in broken English from Camille as we walk to her aunt's apartment. Julian has a history of chaotic choices. He recently quit his job, started dating a mystery woman from Ibiza, and might be planning to move to Argentina to start a kombucha farm. The family is concerned and they want me, the neutral bilingual outsider, to help mediate because Julian listens better to people who aren't in the family vortex. This is a nightmare. I try to confess I'm not fluent, but we're already walking into the apartment and everyone's clapping and hugging and saying how glad they are that le traducteur est ici. They sit me down on a couch across from Julian, who looks like a hungover philosopher in a leather jacket. The family starts yelling over each other. Camille turns to me and says, "Just translate." I look Julian dead in the eye and say, in English, "Hey man, your family's really worried about you. They want to help. Can we talk?" Julian stares at me. Then he laughs. Then he says in perfect English, "Thank God." I thought I was losing my mind. Turns out Julian spent a semester in Boston and speaks English fluently. He just pretends not to, so he doesn't have to deal with the family drama. We bond instantly. He tells me he's not actually starting a kombucha farm. He just told his mom that so she'd stop asking about his career. We devise a plan. I translate everything for the next hour, except I'm filtering out all the yelling and drama and just saying things like, "They're saying they love you and support you. They're proud of your independent spirit. They just want to make sure you're okay." Everyone calms down. Julia nods a lot. There are hugs. His mom cries. At the end, they thank me like I'm some kind of peace guru. Camille kisses me on the cheek and whispers, "You're amazing." That should have been my exit. But no. I spend the rest of the weekend pretending to be this emotionally intelligent, polyglot peacekeeper while Julian and I exchange knowing glances like we're co-conspirators in a French telenovela. The real kicker? When I finally came clean to Camille a month later, we were getting serious. She just stared at me and said, "Yeah, I knew after like 10 minutes in Paris. You said your grandmother was from Bordeaux-sur-Seine, which doesn't exist." I asked why she didn't call me out. She shrugged and said, "Because watching you try so hard was kind of adorable. And because you helped with Julian, even if it was by accident." We're still dating. But anytime we're in a room with her family, I keep my mouth shut and nod a lot. TIFU by taking my boss's 8-year-old kid to a funeral instead of soccer practice. So this happened last Saturday, and I'm only just starting to recover from the embarrassment. I, 27M, work as an executive assistant to a VP at a mid-sized marketing firm. I'm decent at my job, mostly because I can juggle multiple things at once without losing my cool. That is, until I ended up delivering a child to the wrong life event. My boss, let's call him Greg, is one of those hyper-type A guys. Wakes up at 4:30 a.m., cold plunges, 2 phones, 10 daily meetings, intermittent fasting, probably talks to his own reflection in the mirror every morning to psych himself up. We get along okay, mostly because I anticipate his caffeine needs like an oracle and I don't ask dumb questions. Last week, he tells me he's got a major meeting Saturday morning and his wife is out of town, so he needs someone to take their son, Carter, 8, to soccer practice and then drop him back off at their house. Normally, I'd say no, but Greg had just greenlit my PTO for a trip to Costa Rica next month, so I owed him one. Simple job. Pick up Carter at 9:15 a.m. Take him to soccer practice at 10. Wait for an hour. Drop him back off. Easy Saturday, right? Here's where the spiral begins. Saturday morning, I drive over to their place. Carter is waiting outside, in full soccer gear, jersey, cleats, shin guards, the works, looking like a mini David Beckham. I greet him like any awkward adult greets a kid they barely know. Hey, champ. Ready to, kick some balls? He shrugs. I guess. We get in the car. I've got the location Greg texted me saved in my maps. St. Andrews. That's all it says. Now, I should have asked for clarification. St. Andrews what? Church? Park? School? Is it a field or a complex or a team name? But I figured, hey, I've lived in this city for 5 years. There's only one St. Andrews I know, a church about 20 minutes out. I figured they must have a field or a rec area or something behind it. Plus, the timing worked. So I drive us out there. We pull into the lot. There are a ton of cars, people in formal wear walking toward the building, some older folks crying. I start to get a weird feeling. Is this the right place? Carter asks. Yeah, must be. Maybe the game's indoors today. I lie. But we step out, and everything is solemn. The big sign out front says, Celebrating the Life of Margaret DeWitt, 1934 to 2024. Oh. A woman in a black dress is handing out little leaflets at the door. Carter looks up at me, clearly unsure. I do a mental backflip trying to justify this. Maybe there's a soccer field around back? Maybe the name was wrong in the calendar? Maybe I'm having a fever dream? We're standing there awkwardly when a man walks up, sees Carter in full soccer gear, looks baffled, then says, Oh my God, were you Margaret's great-grandson? Carter looks at me, panic blooming in his eyes. I jump in. Yes, this is Carter. Margaret's great-grandson. From, her daughter's side. In Toronto. The man tears up. You made it all this way for her memorial? That's beautiful. And before I can protest, we are ushered into the church. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to quietly walk into a funeral with an 8-year-old dressed like he's ready for a penalty kick, but let me tell you, there is no stealth mode. We're seated in the front row. Front row. Everyone thinks Carter is this stoic little athlete grandson who came straight from a tournament to say goodbye to his beloved great-grandmother. A slideshow starts. There's a song playing, asterisk wind beneath my wings asterisk, and I glance down at Carter, who whispers, We need to leave. I know, I whisper back. But I think we need to wait for a good moment. No good moment comes. Then, the pastor gets up and asks if any family members would like to share a memory of Margaret. The same guy who ushered us in stands and says, Let's hear from the young man who traveled all this way, Margaret's great-grandson, Carter. Carter freezes. I freeze. There is a smattering of encouraging applause. People are smiling at him. A widow dabs her eyes, touched. I lean down and whisper, You don't have to say anything. We can just pretend you're too emotional. Carter stands up. I feel my soul leave my body. He walks to the podium and delivers what can only be described as the most chaotic, confusing, and awkward 45-second speech ever given at a funeral. He says, and I quote, Margaret was really old, and she loved her family. Probably. I didn't really know her because, I live in Canada, but she seemed nice, and I think she liked soccer. I hope she's playing soccer in heaven. With Jesus. Okay. Thanks. I consider opening a hymnal and crawling inside of it. We escape as soon as the service ends. I drop Carter off and Greg isn't home yet. Carter says nothing as he walks into the house. Just gives me a look like we've been to war together. I spend the rest of the day in a cold sweat. I don't hear anything from Greg until Monday morning. He calls me into his office. So he says, How is soccer practice? My mouth goes dry. Good. He, scored. A lot. Greg nods slowly. Funny. Carter told me he gave a eulogy this weekend. I feel myself dying inside. I start stammering some apology, but Greg raises a hand and says, Honestly, it's fine. His mom was furious, but I haven't laughed that hard in years. I heard he told 100 people Margaret played soccer with Jesus. Apparently, Greg told the whole leadership team. I now get called Reverend in meetings. So yeah, I accidentally took my boss's kid to a funeral and made him give a fake eulogy. To fool by accidentally sending a picture of my Harry, but to the entire company. This happened last week, but I'm only now emotionally stable enough to tell it. So for context, I, 32M, work for a mid-sized marketing agency. We're about 150 people, mostly remote, with a few in-office folks. I'm part of the creative team, and we have this tradition of sending funny or weird photos in our Slack channel on Fridays for what we call Fun Dump Friday. It's usually harmless, memes, pet pics, the occasional cringy selfie. Now, a little about me. I'm a dude who recently discovered the dark art of manscaping. A few weeks ago, I bought one of those high-end grooming kits with all the bells and whistles. I never really cared about grooming beyond shaving my face, but my girlfriend jokingly said I was turning into a werewolf, and in my infinite wisdom and fragile ego, I decided to fix it. Last Thursday night, I got a little drunk. My girlfriend was out of town for a wedding, and I was alone, bored, and freshly inspired to tame the jungle that was my lower back and, everything below it. I started with my chest, moved on to my stomach, and before I knew it, I was standing naked in my bathroom, one leg on the toilet, mirror propped on the sink, trying to get a good angle of my behind. I don't know if you've ever tried to shave your own butt, but it's basically a Cirque du Soleil act without the applause. I somehow ended up twisted like a pretzel, phone in hand, taking a photo to check my progress. It was a terrible picture. Not sexy in the slightest. The lighting was bad, my expression was worse, and my butt looked like a half-deforested hobbit's foot. But here's where I truly, epically, life-falteringly messed up. See, earlier that day, a colleague had sent a group message to our entire company's Slack workspace about a virtual scavenger hunt we're doing for team building. I had opened the DM, but somehow I accidentally started typing in the general channel instead. That channel, mind you, has all 150 employees, including HR, the CEO, and the new interns. So the next morning, I wake up groggy, hungover, and I vaguely remember something about taking a picture to check the symmetry. I grab my phone to delete it, assuming it's still safely in my gallery, only to find a notification on Slack that nearly made me throw up on my bedsheets.
Wow.
That's one way to start a Friday. Face with tears of joy. Asterisk, asterisk. Ah. My eyes. Whoever sent that, please see HR. My heart dropped. My soul tried to exit my body. My palms instantly became Niagara Falls. I opened Slack and there it was, in all its unfiltered glory. My hairy, unevenly shaved ass cheeks staring back at me like the eye of Sauron, uploaded directly into the company-wide general chat. It had been there for 8 hours.
8.
The reactions were plentiful. Some were laughing emojis, some were horrified faces. One guy even commented, "Respect the confidence." I wanted to crawl under my bed and live there forever like a cursed goblin. Immediately, I deleted the message, hoping to erase the evidence. But the internet never forgets. Someone had already screen capped it. I later found out it was our resident prankster, Kyle, who made it his Zoom background for 30 seconds before being told by a manager to take it down. So I did the only thing I could. I emailed HR and came clean. I explained it was an accidental upload meant for a private note to self, that I was grooming and checking progress, and somehow got distracted by Slack notifications. I left out the part about being drunk, obviously. They were surprisingly chill about it. The HR manager literally said, "We've seen worse," which honestly just raised more questions than answers. They asked me to be more careful and suggested I turn off auto-upload permissions on Slack. I didn't even know that was a setting. But that wasn't the end. Oh no. Later that day, the CEO posted in the same channel, "Let's keep things professional on Slack. And please double-check your uploads. This is still a workplace." But also, whoever posted that impressive bravery. I died. Again. This time on a molecular level. Now I'm infamous. People have started calling me cheeky. I hear whispers when I enter Zoom calls. Someone even made a damn Bitmoji sticker of me with a peach emoji. I'm never living this down. To add salt to the wound, my girlfriend came back and laughed so hard she cried. She now refers to the whole thing as the Great Crackcident of 2025. So yeah, that's how I ended up unintentionally mooning my entire company and earning a permanent place in office lore. Be careful where you click, friends. especially when your pants are off. TIFU by trying to spice up our marriage with a surprise costume. So my wife, 33F, and I, 34M, have been married for 7 years, and we're in that phase where you either settle into a routine or you actively try to keep things interesting. We chose the latter. Sometimes that means random date nights, surprise gifts, or weekend getaways. Other times, it means trying weird stuff in the bedroom. Enter the root of this catastrophe. Last month, during a tipsy dinner with our friends, we ended up talking about roleplay. Not like D&D, though that's a rabbit hole of its own, but the adult variety. Our friends joked about how silly it can get, but my wife leaned into me and whispered, asterisk, it could be fun. Asterisk, that was all the encouragement I needed. Fast forward to last week. Her birthday was coming up, and I wanted to do something bold, memorable, and a little spicy. So I ordered a full firefighter costume online. Not the cheesy stripper kind. No, I'm talking full-on boots, suspenders, jacket, helmet, even a fake oxygen tank. I wanted to burst into the bedroom and rescue her from the burning building of boredom, if you will. I spent a week planning this. I cleaned the house, prepped dinner, lit candles, queued up Barry White, cliché, I know, but it felt right. The piece de resistance was the text I sent her that day. Asterisk, tonight, I'm gonna make your birthday hot. Asterisk, I even practiced my lines in the mirror like a lunatic. I was so ready. So the night comes. I tell her to wait in the bedroom while I set the stage. I get changed into my firefighter outfit in the bathroom. It's absurdly warm. I'm sweating bullets, but I convince myself it's part of the immersion. I grab the toy fire extinguisher, which I had filled with harmless scented mist from a humidifier tank, don't ask, and prepare for my grand entrance. I kick the door open with dramatic flair and yell, asterisk, I heard there's a fire in here. Asterisk. And that's when everything falls apart. My wife screams, not the sexy kind, the someone just broke into my house kind. I'm confused, frozen in the doorway like an idiot in boots and a plastic helmet. She grabs a lamp and hurls it at me. I dodge, barely, and try to yell over the chaos. Asterisk, it's me. It's me. Asterisk. But it's too late. She had invited her sister and 2 close friends over for a surprise birthday Zoom call that I didn't know about. The camera is angled toward the bed, and I realize, too late, that I'm in full view. The laptop is open, and I can hear a chorus of high-pitched asterisk, oh my god, asterisk, and laughter erupting through the speaker. I panic. I backpedal out of the room, trip over my boots, and land ass first on the hallway rug. The extinguisher goes off. Mist sprays everywhere. The smoke alarm decides this is the perfect moment to fulfill its life's purpose. Now the dog is barking, I'm coughing, and my wife is laughing so hard she's crying. I get up, remove my helmet like a defeated war hero, and walk back into the room. My wife's friends are crying with laughter on the Zoom call. Her sister is screen recording the whole thing and chanting, "Play it at the wedding," even though we're already married. Eventually, I manage to sit down with them, still half-dressed in my firefighter gear, and explain what I thought was going to happen. Everyone is in stitches. My wife, thankfully, is not angry, just amused and mildly impressed by the effort. She keeps saying, "You're lucky you didn't get tossed." I've now been gifted a collection of firefighter-themed gag gifts. Her sister bought me a calendar titled Hot Hose Hunks, which she proudly hung on our fridge. My mother-in-law heard about it because why not, and texted me, asterisk, heard you're saving lives now. Proud of you. Asterisk. The worst part? I found out I had the suspenders on backwards the whole time. I had the sexy confidence of a seducer but the execution of a dad at a kid's Halloween party. The best part? My wife now refers to that night as the Great Fire of Bedroom 7B and wants a repeat, minus the audience, the mist, and the accidental domestic terrorism vibes. So yeah, I tried to be her hero. Instead, I became a legend for all the wrong reasons. But hey, at least I didn't actually set anything on fire. Except maybe her sister's retinas. She says she still sees helmet glare when she blinks. TIFU by trying to surprise my girlfriend with a romantic gesture and accidentally ruining a child's birthday party. traumatizing a room full of kids, and possibly getting banned from a Chuck E. Cheese. So this happened last weekend. My girlfriend, Emma, is really into romantic comedies and Pinterest-style grand gestures. She's dropped more than a few hints that she'd love it if I did something spontaneous and cinematic for her sometime. And I, being the overconfident idiot that I am, thought, challenge accepted. Emma works weekends at a boutique downtown, and I thought Saturday would be the perfect time to pull this off. My brilliant plan: surprise her at work with flowers, then whisk her away to a nearby park where I'd already set up a picnic. But that felt a little too basic. So I decided to up the ante by hiring a mascot, a giant teddy bear, to deliver the flowers and a note from me. I didn't want just any bear. I wanted the best bear. So after some questionable Craigslist searches and phone calls that probably got me flagged somewhere, I landed on a guy named Randy, who claimed to be a professional costumed entertainer for all occasions. His ad said he had multiple characters and came with over a decade of performance experience. I figured that sounded legit enough. We agreed on a time, 1 p.m. sharp. I paid him via Venmo, gave him the bouquet and the letter ahead of time, and sent him the address of Emma's boutique. I then went to the park to finish setting up the picnic. Blanket, fairy lights, portable speaker, wine. Yes, I know it's not technically allowed, but it was in a thermos. The whole 9 yards. 1:10 rolls around, no text from Emma. By 1:20, still nothing. At 1:30, I start to worry that Randy flaked or something went wrong. Just as I'm about to call her, I get a frantic, all-caps message. "What the F did you do?" I call her immediately. She picks up, whisper yelling into the phone. "You sent a grown man in a busted-looking panda costume into a children's birthday party and told him to give me flowers." The guy walked into the party room and started handing out roses like he was the bachelor, then pulled out a note and asked, "Is there an Emma here?" in this weird, gravelly voice. I was speechless. Absolutely floored. Apparently, Randy got the location wrong. The boutique shares a plaza with a Chuck E. Cheese, and this is the kicker: Emma's coworker told him she just ran next door to grab lunch. So Randy, in all his plush glory, saunters into the Chuck E. Cheese with a bouquet and a mission. From what Emma told me later, and what I pieced together from a Facebook video that's already got over 6,000 shares, here's what happened. He walked in and interrupted a child's birthday party mid-dash, "Happy birthday." The kids were already a little weirded out because this panda was clearly off-brand and, honestly, kinda terrifying. Think Five Nights at Freddy's meets depressed mall Santa. He starts speaking in this deep, unsettling voice that sounded more like a Batman villain than a cute mascot. The birthday girl starts crying. A boy throws a slice of pizza at him. One mom starts screaming, "Who hired this guy?" as another tries to shield her toddler's eyes. And Randy, bless him, just keeps going. He dramatically pulls out the letter and announces, "Emma, you are the love of my life," before realizing no one is responding. Cue more crying. Eventually, one of the employees, some poor 16-year-old, escorts Randy out while yelling, "Dude, this is private property." He tries to explain, but it just makes things worse because he's still in the creepy bear voice. Emma had been watching this train wreck unfold from the prize counter, frozen in horror. I immediately drove over, abandoning the picnic. When I arrived, Emma was standing in the parking lot with her arms crossed, bouquet in hand, looking like she wanted to murder me, Randy, and probably Charles Entertainment Cheese himself. We had a long, awkward conversation in my car. She eventually calmed down and, thank God, laughed about it. Sort of. She said the gesture would have been sweet if it didn't involve traumatizing children and hijacking a family event. Apparently, the birthday mom is threatening to press charges, and Chuck E. Cheese Corporate has our names on file. I tried to make it up to her with a picnic, which we did end up doing later that night, sans mascot. It was nice. We even laughed about the whole thing over wine. She made me promise that if I ever plan a romantic surprise again, I need to include her, like 70% more. As for Randy, he texted me later saying, "Didn't go as planned. No refunds." I didn't even argue. That man earned his money. Not well, but he earned it. Now, every time Emma sees a stuffed animal, she just gives me this look. And we're definitely never setting foot in a Chuck E. Cheese again. So yeah, that's the story of how I tried to be the rom-com boyfriend of the year and ended up as the unwitting villain in a bunch of kids' nightmares.
TIFU.
TIFU by pretending to be an extrovert to impress my girlfriend's friends and nearly starting an accidental cult. So, this happened a few months ago, but I'm just now starting to mentally recover. For context, I, 28M, am a hardcore introvert. I'm talking full-on small talk gives me hives, and my dream vacation is being left alone with noise-canceling headphones and a burrito. But I've been dating Emma, 27F, for about a year, and she is the literal opposite. She thrives on chaos, hosts parties like she's auditioning for The Bachelor, and somehow knows someone in every city we visit. I love her. I really do. But her world exhausts me. One day, Emma told me she wanted me to meet her core friend group from college. She called them her chosen family and said they were brutally honest, a little eccentric, and would love me if I didn't act like a serial killer in the corner.
Great.
The introvert's nightmare, 8 strangers with a shared history, inside jokes, and no filters. So I made a plan. I would fake it, just for the weekend. I would become extrovert Chad. Talkative, mysterious, confident Chad. I watched YouTube videos on body language, practiced open-ended questions in the mirror like a sociopath, and even tested outfits to look approachably cool.
I went all in.
The meetup was at a giant Airbnb cabin in the woods. Classic bonding retreat. The group was already there when we arrived, and they greeted Emma like she was royalty. When I stepped in, everything went quiet for like 1.5 seconds too long, like I was a new character in a sitcom, and everyone was trying to figure out if I'd be the villain or comic relief. I smiled big, said something like, "So this is the legendary crew I've heard too much about," and they all burst out laughing. I think they thought I was being sarcastic. I wasn't. Anyway, I kept up the act. I was loud. I made jokes. I asked weirdly specific questions. At one point, someone said, "What's your biggest fear?" And I said, "Horses with human eyes." That's not even true. I panicked and said the first creepy thing I could think of. They loved it. They started calling me the Oracle because I apparently dropped wisdom in riddles. Again, I wasn't trying to. I just couldn't think fast enough and said things like, "Time is just a bad sequel to Silence," when they asked why I didn't use Instagram. Now here's where it goes off the rails. On night 2, someone named Felix brought out mushrooms.
Not the pizza kind.
I don't do drugs, but I was still in character and didn't want to kill the vibe. I passed, but they all tripped in the living room while I made myself a grilled cheese in the kitchen. At some point, they decided I should lead them through the darkness. I thought they meant the power went out.
No.
They meant metaphorically, emotionally, spiritually. I tried to excuse myself and go to bed, but someone put a poncho on me and started chanting, "Oarisi, Oarisieli." I laughed nervously, but the whole group was suddenly looking at me with the blank reverence of a cult initiation. Someone lit incense. I'm not joking. A full stick of sandalwood incense. Emma was watching from the couch, crying from laughter, and said, "Just roll with it, babe."
So I did.
I stood up, raised my hands like Rafiki from The Lion King, and started saying the most vague nonsense I could come up with. Things like, "The moon listens when the forest forgets," and "Only by shedding the ego can we find the sacred Wi-Fi." They were riveted. Felix started taking notes. Someone else whispered, "I think I just unlocked a childhood memory." I accidentally created a psychedelic TED Talk. Then someone asked if I could bless the circle. I didn't know what that meant, so I walked around them, lightly patting their heads and saying, "Be not afraid," like I was cosplaying as a biblical angel. It got real quiet. One of them was sobbing. Another one kissed my shoe. I was starting to panic. I told them, "The ritual is complete. Sleep, my children." And they did. They all lay down and fell asleep like I'd cast a spell. I spent the rest of the night sitting on the porch with Emma, drinking tea, completely shell-shocked. The next morning, I thought it would all be a weird, funny memory we'd laugh about.
But no. They were changed.
One guy said he hadn't felt that scene in years. Another girl told me I was her lighthouse now. Felix gave me a leather-bound notebook and said, "For your teachings." I tried to dial it back and act normal the rest of the weekend, but the damage was done. They saw me as a spiritual leader, a guru. Emma found the whole thing hilarious and begged me not to tell them it was all fake. I thought once we left, they'd forget. They didn't. In the weeks after, I started getting messages. Long, emotional ones. Asking for guidance. One girl sent me a poem she wrote after our ceremony called Oracle of the Pines. Another guy told me he'd broken up with his girlfriend because the oracle showed me I was living a lie. I didn't even remember talking to him. Felix started an Instagram page called Hey Friends. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. TIFU by getting blackout drunk at my girlfriend's family reunion and accidentally calling her dad daddy. This happened last weekend, and I still wake up at 3 a.m. every night cringing myself into the fetal position. For context, I, 28M, have been dating my girlfriend Anna, 26F, for about a year. Things are great. She's smart, kind, funny, and we've talked seriously about moving in together. I've met her parents a couple of times in passing, but this was the big event, her extended family's annual summer lake house reunion. A full weekend of fun, sun, bonding, and allegedly low-key drinking. I say allegedly because what I walked into was less of a lakeside barbecue and more of an all-out rager disguised as a wholesome family affair. Apparently, Anna's family treats this like Burning Man with boat shoes. Her uncles were slamming beers before noon, her aunt had a handle of vodka in her beach tote for hydration, and even her grandmother made Jell-O shots, which she called wobblers, with an alarming amount of tequila. So, naturally, I wanted to fit in. I'm no lightweight, but I didn't want to be the uptight boyfriend who sipped beer and said things like, "I have work on Monday." My goal was to integrate seamlessly. Be charming. Be relaxed. Be accepted. What I failed to factor in was that I don't drink much these days. I'd been on a bit of a health kick and hadn't had more than a beer or two in months. But that logic left my brain the moment Anna's cousin handed me a red Solo cup filled with a concoction they lovingly called lake water. One sip, and I understood. It tasted like blue raspberry battery acid and regret. But it went down dangerously smooth. 2 lake waters in, I was laughing at jokes I didn't understand. 3 in, I was trying to play cornhole against a guy named Big Mike who looked like he could bench press a canoe. 4 in, I lost all shame and joined a game of slip and flip, a hybrid of slip and slide and flip cup that was as dangerous as it sounds. That's around when the memory hole started. But I've pieced it together thanks to photographic evidence, secondhand accounts, and the emotional scars left on everyone involved. At some point, I wandered over to where Anna's dad, Tom, was grilling burgers. He's a tall, stoic guy who looks like the kind of man who can fix a car with a paperclip and sheer willpower. I'd always felt a little intimidated by him. Apparently, I decided this was the moment to bond. According to witnesses, I staggered up to the grill, shirtless, absolutely drenched from the slip and flip tournament, clutching a hot dog bun like it held the secrets of the universe. I looked Tom dead in the eyes and said, with complete sincerity, "Yo, Daddy, flip me one of those meat boys."
Daddy.
I called my girlfriend's father, Daddy. Now, I understand that alcohol impairs judgment. But the worst part is that I didn't say it in a sarcastic or joking way. No, I said it like it was the most normal thing in the world. Like we'd always called each other that. Like I was establishing a lifelong nickname. Tom, bless this man, apparently froze mid-flip, tongs in hand, just staring at me like he was trying to figure out if this was some kind of new age dominance challenge. Anna, who had been chatting nearby, turned around in time to hear me follow up my daddy declaration with a confident, "You're grillin' real sexy today." This is when she intervened. She pulled me away with a kind of calm fury only a woman dealing with a drunken boyfriend can manage. I vaguely remember her hissing through her teeth, "What the hell is wrong with you?" while dragging me toward the house. I wish the story ended there. It didn't. Back in the house, I apparently became very interested in the family dog, a mild-mannered golden retriever named Daisy. I decided we were best friends, and that she needed to hear all my feelings. I lay on the carpet next to her, whispering things like, "You get me," and "You'd never judge me like Daddy does." At this point, I think Anna was trying to find me water, or maybe just a place to hide my body. Her 9-year-old niece wandered in and asked why I was lying on the floor. I allegedly told her, "The earth is hugging me and I deserve it," which prompted her to tell her mom that Anna's friend is broken. Eventually, Anna and her cousin managed to get me into a guest bedroom, where I passed out face down on a comforter that smelled like sunscreen and despair. I woke up at 6 a.m. the next morning with a mouth like a desert, a mild concussion from the slip and flip, and absolutely no recollection of the chaos I had wrought. Anna was sitting at the edge of the bed, sipping coffee and looking at me like I was a raccoon that had crawled through her window and eaten all her snacks. She showed me a photo her cousin had taken of me saluting the grill with a hot dog bun and slurring, "To Daddy, our meat hero." I wanted to melt into the floor. We stayed the rest of the weekend, mostly because I was in no shape to drive or exist in public. Tom avoided eye contact. Her aunt high-fived me. Her grandmother gave me a Jell-O shot and said, "At least you weren't boring." I considered that a win. On the drive home, Anna said she still loved me, but that I now had to attend every family event for the rest of our lives so I could replace the daddy story with something less horrifying. I haven't had a drop of alcohol since. I can't even look at a grill without feeling like I've personally offended an entire lineage of dads. I'm hoping time will heal all wounds. But something tells me that for the next decade, I'll be known as Daddy Guy at every family reunion. TIFU by accidentally live-streaming my breakup to my entire company. So I, 29M, work for a fully remote tech startup. It's one of those companies that's trying really hard to be fun and hip, so we use this virtual office software called WorkNest. It's like Sims meets Zoom. Your little avatar walks around a pixelated office, and if you enter a room, you can see and hear anyone else in that room.
Cute, right?
Mostly used it for meetings, casual chit-chat, or pretending to be busy while scrolling Reddit. Anyway, I'd been dating my girlfriend Kayla, 27F, for 2 years. We lived together, shared a dog, Spotify Premium, the works. But lately, things were rocky. Like Titanic hitting the iceberg rocky. There had been this growing distance between us. She was stressed with grad school, I was working late, communication sucked, and let's just say our love life had become more theoretical than actual. Now here's where I really ed up. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I was in one of our team lounge rooms in WorkNest, essentially a virtual break room where people just go to vibe. I had my headphones on listening to lo-fi beats and completely forgot I had left my mic and camera on because earlier in the day we'd had an impromptu team birthday call. The room was technically public, but since it was late afternoon and we were all in different time zones, I thought no one would be around. Kayla came home early. She looked upset. Like mascara smeared, deep breaths before saying something savage upset. I took off my headphones and turned to her. This next part is burned into my memory. "Kayla, we need to talk." My stomach dropped. She never says that unless something nuclear is about to happen. I knew this was it. But instead of asking for a few minutes to go to the bedroom, I just let it happen. Right there, in our living room. While sitting at my desk, in front of a still broadcasting camera, on a platform that connects to my entire company. The conversation started slow, then escalated like a Michael Bay movie. She brought up everything, how I'd been emotionally distant, how she felt unsupported, how I treated our relationship like a side quest.
Oof.
I, in my infinite wisdom, decided to defend myself mid-sob. Me? I didn't know you felt this way. Why didn't you say something? Kayla. I did. In texts, in person. Hell, I made a PowerPoint one time. This went on for a solid 20 minutes. There was crying. Accusations. At one point she said, "You're more committed to your fantasy football league than to us." And I said something like, "Well, at least my fantasy team gives me feedback," which was possibly the dumbest thing I've ever uttered in my life. Then she left, slammed the door. I sat there, devastated, staring at my monitor, not even registering what had just happened, until I saw the chat. Hundreds, yes, hundreds of messages. My company has over 80 employees, and apparently, about 40 of them had wandered into the team lounge during this breakup saga. And thanks to the lovely Work Nest system, when someone enters a room, it doesn't alert you. But the chat, oh God, the chat. Yo, is this for real? Someone tell him he's not muted. I can't believe he brought up fantasy football. She made a PowerPoint? Queen. Honestly, I'm Team Kayla. Guys, leave the room, this is painful. But nobody left. Because people are nosy. Some were even reacting with the little emoji things you can use in Work Nest. Crying faces, broken hearts, popcorn emojis. I was unknowingly starring in a live episode of Love is Dead. I immediately turned off my camera and mic, shut my laptop, and crawled into bed fully clothed. I didn't even remove my glasses. Just stared at the ceiling while my dog tried to lick the tears off my face. The next morning, I woke up to a Slack message from HR. Hey, my name. We noticed some activity in the team lounge yesterday. Hope everything is okay. Just a reminder to check your privacy settings. Reminder to check my privacy settings. I wanted to crawl into a hole and live there forever. I called in sick, obviously. When I came back Monday, the memes had already started circulating. Someone I still don't know who made a fake podcast graphic called Break Room Breakups with my avatar and a heart split in two. Another coworker started using the phrase "don't pull my name" anytime someone overshared during meetings. Surprisingly, though, a few people reached out privately and said they'd been through similar stuff, or that they appreciated how raw and honest the whole thing was. One guy said it reminded him to check in with his partner more. Another coworker, who I always thought was super cold and robotic, sent me a message saying relationships are hard, man. Hope you're doing okay. We've actually become decent friends since then. Kayla and I officially broke up that weekend. No cameras involved. Just two people realizing they weren't meant to be anymore. As for work, I'm still employed. Still logging into Work Nest. I changed my avatar's clothes so people would stop saying it looked too sad. And yes, I now double and triple check my mic and camera before every meeting. So yeah, that's how I accidentally turned a very private, very painful moment into the most watched stream in my company's history. To full by accidentally getting involved in a secret neighborhood cult. This happened last fall, but the consequences are still unfolding, so it feels fresh. I recently moved into a quiet, overly friendly suburban neighborhood after scoring a remote tech job. I was ready to embrace the whole white picket fence lifestyle, morning jogs, grill-outs, waving at neighbors like I was in a car commercial. And for the first few weeks, that's exactly how it felt. People brought casseroles. Everyone smiled like their default facial setting was delighted. It was honestly kind of unnerving, but I figured maybe I'd just grown too cynical in the city. Then came the invitation. I got a hand-delivered envelope on thick cream paper, wax seal and all, inviting me to the gathering. No details beyond that. Just a time, a date, Friday at 9 p.m., and a location, the community center at the end of the cul-de-sac. I thought it might be a Halloween party or some HOA thing. My curiosity got the better of me, and I went. First sign, this was not your standard suburban wine and cheese soiree. The windows were blacked out. Inside, all the overhead lights were off, replaced by about 200 candles arranged in perfect rows. Everyone was dressed in matching dark robes. No one acknowledged my jeans and hoodie. They just smiled, wider than normal, and made space for me in a circle. The guy I knew as Bob from 3 doors down, who always waved when he watered his lawn, stood in the center. He raised his arms and said, "Let the offering begin." At this point, I was 90% sure I had wandered into some kind of improv performance, maybe a LARP group? But no, this was not a game. A woman stepped forward holding what looked like a loaf of bread, only it was black. Charcoal black. She placed it on a small pedestal, then everyone started chanting in unison. Not Latin, not anything I recognized, but rhythmic. Hypnotic. I tried to sneak out, but before I could reach the door, Bob called my name. My actual name. Not "Hey neighbor," not "new guy," but my full name. Everyone turned to look at me. My brain did that thing where it screams, but the body just freezes. "Would you do us the honor?" he asked, gesturing to the black loaf. I swear to whatever deity you like, I had no idea what to say. So I did what any self-respecting millennial would do in an awkward situation. I fake laughed and said, "Sure, why not?" They handed me a ceremonial-looking dagger. I thought I was going to cut the bread.
Nope.
Instead, Bob brought out a box. From the box came a chicken. A very alive, very unhappy chicken. At this point, all alarms in my head were blaring. But then the chicken was set down, the group resumed chanting, and I realized that the honor was not metaphorical. I was expected to sacrifice this bird. I looked around. No one else seemed surprised. Not even Karen, who had once given me zucchini bread and gardening tips. Her smile had not wavered. I mumbled something about being a vegetarian and started backing toward the door. That's when Bob said, "The first timer declines. It is done." Everyone clapped. I didn't know if this was relief or foreshadowing. I ran home, locked my doors, and tried to convince myself I had misunderstood everything. But the next morning, I found a basket on my porch. Inside, a note that said, "You are welcome among us as you are," and a mason jar of what I swear was blood pudding. I dumped it. No way was I about to get put on some list because I had mysterious jars of viscera in my fridge. I debated moving. Seriously. But work was going well, and the rent was cheap. So I stayed. Avoided the community center. Avoided eye contact with robe-wearing neighbors. Then the dream started. I know. Sounds fake. But for about 3 weeks, I kept having vivid dreams of standing in that circle again, except this time I wasn't holding the dagger. I was the chicken. That could have just been stress or guilt or something. But one night, I woke up to find the same black loaf from the ceremony sitting on my kitchen counter. No note. Just there. I tossed it. I even called the police, not to report the bread, obviously, but to ask if someone could be breaking in. They sent a patrol by, but nothing came of it. Things calmed down for a while. I stopped getting weird gifts. The neighbors went back to waving like I hadn't almost joined their midnight poultry bloodletting. I chalked it up to a weird initiation ritual, some sort of fringe, social club nonsense I'd sidestepped. Until 2 weeks ago. I was out walking my dog late at night and saw Bob standing at the community center entrance. Just standing. In full robes. I tried to slip past, but he called out, "It's happening again. The cycle. You'll need to choose soon." I pretended not to hear him. Last week, a new family moved in across the street. Young couple. 2 kids. Super normal. Yesterday, I saw them carrying a similar cream envelope with a wax seal. They looked confused. Curious. Just like I did. I wanted to warn them. I did. But I didn't. I don't know if that makes me complicit or just cowardly, but I couldn't bring myself to knock on their door. Now, every night around 9 p.m., I see the candles flicker through the cracks in the community center windows. And sometimes, when the wind is just right, I swear I can hear the chanting. I haven't been invited back. But the black loaf showed up again this morning. It was warm. TIFU by thinking I could impress my girlfriend's family with my outdoor skills and nearly starting a forest fire instead. So this happened about a month ago, but I'm only now at the point where I can laugh about it, sort of. For context, I'm 28M and my girlfriend, 27F, and I have been dating for almost a year. Things have been great, and she invited me to go on a weekend camping trip with her family in the mountains, her parents, younger brother, and a couple of cousins. I'm talking old school camping. Tents, fire pits, no cell service, and compost toilets. I grew up in the suburbs, but I've done a few solo hikes, watched a ton of survival shows, and I thought I was pretty outdoorsy. Emphasis on thought. We get up there Friday evening, and it's beautiful. Her family is super welcoming, and I want to make a good impression, so I offer to take charge of the fire that night. Her dad looks mildly skeptical, but hands me the responsibility anyway. I'm internally smug. I've got this, I say like I'm Bear Grylls. I go full primal mode, start building a fire from scratch, even decline the lighter fluid her uncle offers. I want them to know I can do this the real way. I gather tinder, kindling, even make a little teepee structure like I saw in a YouTube video. It takes longer than expected, but eventually, I get a decent flame going.
Success.
Dinner is great. We're roasting sausages and marshmallows, everyone's chatting, and I'm feeling good. Maybe I even see a glint of approval in her dad's eyes. Before turning in, I make sure the fire is out, dumping a bunch of water on it, and stirring the ashes around. Everything looks fine. No smoke, no embers. I'm feeling pretty responsible. Next morning, we go for a long hike, like 4 hours round trip. It's only when we return to the campsite that we notice something's off. The air smells burnt. Not like fresh campfire, but like something shouldn't be burning. Her cousin, who got a headache and stayed behind, is standing next to our fire pit with this panicked expression. The ground near the pit is blackened, a patch of nearby grass is charred, and a small tree next to it is scorched on one side. Turns out, I didn't extinguish the fire properly. Some hot embers had stayed alive under the ash. A breeze must have kicked up while we were gone, reignited it, and blown some sparks onto the dry grass. Luckily, the cousin noticed the smoke and managed to douse it with water and sand before it got out of hand, but it could have easily turned into a full-blown forest fire. We were surrounded by dry pine forest, the kind of stuff that goes up like tinder. Cue an awkward emergency family meeting where I get the fire safety equivalent of "we're not mad, we're just disappointed." Her dad calmly explained what I did wrong. Should have poured more water. Stirred. Poured again. Waited. Repeated. I nodded, humiliated. My girlfriend was mortified. The cousin was a hero. I was the idiot who almost sent us all running for our lives over a smoldering marshmallow pit. But that wasn't even the worst part. The forest ranger showed up about 2 hours later. Apparently, someone from a nearby trail saw the smoke and reported it. The ranger takes one look at the charred grass and starts asking questions. I immediately fess up because, well, what else could I do? He gives me the most thorough lecture I've ever received from anyone not holding a textbook. Then comes the kicker. I get a citation. A citation. For negligence in maintaining a campfire. It's not a criminal charge, but it's still a record and a fine. $450. My girlfriend's dad pays it on the spot before I can even reach for my wallet. Says he doesn't want state business ruining a family weekend. I feel like absolute garbage. I try to give him the money later, but he refuses, says I'll repay him by learning how to not burn down the countryside. We haven't talked about it since. Needless to say, I did not light another fire the rest of that weekend. In fact, I barely touched a match. I just helped with cooking, did dishes, and kept my head down. Her little brother started calling me Smokey the Fool, and I honestly couldn't even argue with it. The drive home was quiet. My girlfriend wasn't angry, but she was definitely distant. She said it'll be fine, her family still likes me, but I can tell there's a weird vibe now. I've since taken a certified fire safety course and have become the most paranoid person on earth when it comes to anything flammable. Lesson learned: don't try to flex your skills when you don't actually have them, especially around fire. Especially when dry pine needles are involved. Especially when you're trying to impress your girlfriend's family. Also, always pour water twice. TIFU by accidentally going on a romantic cabin trip with my boss thinking he was my Tinder date. So this happened last weekend, and I've barely slept since. I keep replaying every moment and cringing so hard my soul might actually detach from my body. I, 29F, am recently single after a 5-year relationship ended mutually and tearfully over Thai takeout and half a bottle of wine. I've been trying to get back out there, and against my better judgment, I downloaded Tinder. I matched with a guy named James. Handsome, bearded, outdoorsy. His profile had pictures of him hiking, chopping wood, playing with a golden retriever. He looked like someone who could build a fire and then cuddle with you next to it while telling ghost stories. Exactly what I needed after months of wallowing in Netflix and Trader Joe's frozen meals. We chatted for a few weeks. He was charming, funny, a little sarcastic. He said he was looking for something low-key and suggested a cabin weekend getaway, just us, somewhere in the mountains. I know. Stranger danger. But I Googled him, reverse image searched his pics he passed, and figured worst case I'd drive myself and bail if it got weird. Now, I work in marketing for a mid-size outdoor gear company. It's a cool place, very laid back, and most of us are remote, but we all meet up quarterly for retreats and product testing. My boss, let's call him James, is the head of brand strategy. He's only a few years older than me, intimidatingly intelligent, and painfully attractive in that just got back from backpacking in Patagonia kind of way. I've had a harmless little crush on him, but never thought anything of it. So last Friday, I drive up to the address Tinder James gave me. I texted that morning, no answer, but figured maybe there was bad service in the mountains. The cabin was gorgeous. Tucked in the woods, snow-dusted, firewood stacked neatly on the porch. I knocked, door opened, and there he was.
James.
My boss James. Wearing flannel. Looking surprised. My brain blue-screened. I thought maybe he was staying there and Tinder James had rented it through him. Or maybe it was some weird coincidence and this was a shared Airbnb location. I started babbling. He blinked a few times, then said, "You're my Tinder date?" Cue internal screaming. Turns out, both of us were using Tinder under our middle names. His actual first name is Patrick, mine is Elizabeth, and somehow we matched without recognizing each other. Our profile pics were casual, not company headshots or anything. He'd grown a beard. I'd dyed my hair. We chatted just enough to connect, but not about work or anything that would have tipped us off. And this man, my boss, thought he was meeting someone completely different too. Now, most people would have laughed awkwardly, mutually agreed this was a disaster, and parted ways. But no, we were both already there. I had brought wine and groceries. He had started a fire and set out a charcuterie board. It was snowing and the roads were icing over. We just stayed. At first, we sat in silence on opposite ends of the couch like divorced parents. Eventually, we laughed.
He poured wine.
We made dinner. The tension shifted from awkward to oddly comfortable to dangerously flirty. It turns out we have even more chemistry in person, and by the end of the night, we were playing board games and having deep conversations about life and love and career burnout. The next morning, I woke up in his t-shirt. I won't get into details, but suffice it to say we got very well acquainted with the amenities of that cabin. Sunday, we drove back down the mountain in silence, both clearly panicking but trying to play it cool. Monday, we were back in a Zoom meeting discussing product launch strategies like nothing happened. The absolute whiplash of going from, "I know what your freckles look like in moonlight," to "let's circle back on that email campaign" is messing with my head. We haven't talked about it since. Not a word. Not a text. Just professional nods and work-related Slack messages like we didn't share a bubble bath and split a bottle of Malbec while snow fell outside. I can't tell anyone at work. I can't stop replaying every little moment. What if I've tanked my career? What if HR finds out? What if I want it to happen again? The worst part? He just sent out an email confirming our company's next quarterly retreat. Another cabin. Same mountains. Kill me now.
TIFU.
And by today, I mean 2 days ago, but the shame is still riding shotgun and refuses to let me sleep. So I, 29M, have been dating my girlfriend, Sophie, 27F, for a little over a year. Things are serious. Like, serious. She moved in 2 months ago, and we've even started talking about getting a dog together, which for millennials is basically a baby. Her family is pretty close-knit, and I'd only met her parents a couple times, always in casual public settings, coffee shops, brunches, that kind of thing. But last week, her dad, Mark, retired. Big milestone. Sophie floated the idea of having him over for a nice, home-cooked dinner to celebrate. Now, Mark is intimidating. He's a retired Marine, massive dude, voice like a gravel truck, and has this way of looking at you like he's scanning for weaknesses. But he's important to Sophie, so I decided to go all out and cook something impressive. I wanted to do something that looked classy but wasn't too advanced, so I wouldn't screw it up. Cue my fateful decision. Duck breast with cherry reduction, herb roasted potatoes, and garlic green beans.
Fancy, right?
At least on paper. I had never made duck before, but I figured, how hard could it be? It's like chicken's cool French cousin. The day of the dinner arrives. Sophie helps me clean the apartment while I prep. I watch approximately 14 different YouTube videos on how to properly sear duck and make a reduction sauce. I even practice my plating. At one point, I even say, "This is going to be my magnum opus," which feels laughable now. Mark arrives right on time. He gives me a handshake that crushes my metacarpals, nods approvingly at the music playing, Fleetwood Mac, classic safe bet, and sits down in the dining room while I finish up in the kitchen. Everything smells amazing. I'm actually proud. The duck looks perfectly seared, the cherry sauce is this deep, rich red, and the potatoes are crispy on the edges, soft in the middle. I'm sweating, but it's a sexy, Gordon Ramsay in the middle of a service sweat. I feel unstoppable. We sit down. I pour Mark a glass of wine.
He takes a bite.
"This is damn good," he says, chewing thoughtfully. Sophie nods in agreement, says something about how impressed she is, and I feel like a king. I even make a self-deprecating joke about considering culinary school if my IT job doesn't work out. Then the storm begins. Roughly 20 minutes after we finish eating, Mark coughs once. Then again. Then Sophie rubs her stomach and excuses herself. I feel a bit off too, like a distant churning in my gut. I assume it's just nerves until Mark lets out a burp that sounds like a garbage disposal and says, "You boys got a bathroom?" in a voice that suggests he is not going to make it if I hesitate. He disappears into the hallway. Sophie's already in our ensuite. I make it to the guest bathroom just in time to violently and impressively void my entire digestive system. The kind of throwing up where you see stars. I hear Mark groaning from down the hall and Sophie shouting my name. It is the soundscape of hell. I genuinely start to panic. Like, did I give them food poisoning? From what? The duck? The sauce? The beans? Was it undercooked? I definitely checked the temperature.
Twice.
I'm Googling, how fast can duck give you food poisoning while sitting on the bathroom floor wrapped in a towel and sweating through my shirt? About an hour later, Sophie emerges pale and trembling. Mark follows, looking like he just came back from war. He goes, "What the hell kind of duck was that?" And I swear to God, I almost started crying. To make matters worse, he insists on going home right then. "I've had worse," he says, brushing off our apologies, but also refuses to take any leftovers with him. As he's leaving, he says to me, "You've got guts, I'll give you that." And I honestly have no idea if he meant it as a compliment or a jab at the fact that my guts had tried to exit my body an hour prior. Now, here's the kicker. The next morning, I wake up feeling better. Groggy, a little hungover from the ordeal, but okay. Sophie is still a bit off, but stable. I start reviewing every ingredient I used, trying to CSI this culinary crime scene. Then it hits me. The cherries. I'd used a fancy jar of preserved cherries that I found in the back of our pantry, one Sophie's, and gave her last Christmas. I remember thinking they smelled a little funky when I opened them, but figured that was just, like, cherry brandy or something. Reader, it was not cherry brandy. It was fermented failure. The jar must have gone bad months ago. Upon closer inspection, the label didn't even have an expiration date, just the words, "handmade with love." I poisoned my girlfriend's dad with love. Needless to say, Sophie is livid. Not like screaming mad, more like disappointed mad, which is so much worse. Mark, somehow, texted her later that day to say he was feeling better and told her, "Tell your boyfriend I've had worse in Afghanistan." So, silver linings? We've agreed to never speak of the duck incident again. But I still wake up in a cold sweat, imagining Mark's face as he bolted toward my guest bathroom with the urgency of a man trying to outrun the Grim Reaper in my hallway. I guess the lesson here is, if you're going to try to impress someone's father with fine cuisine, maybe don't use mystery cherries from the back of the apocalypse pantry. It all started on a random Tuesday. I was sitting at my desk, mindlessly scrolling through emails, trying to avoid the inevitable work that I was supposed to be doing. I had this project that had been lingering for days, and I just couldn't bring myself to start it. The idea of sitting down, organizing all the data, and presenting it in a coherent way made me feel physically ill. So I did what any rational person would do. I procrastinated. My coworker, Amy, sat across from me in the open office layout. We had a pretty typical work relationship. She was always upbeat, and I was usually the quiet, introverted type, who just wanted to get through the day. But on this particular Tuesday, Amy was unusually quiet, which was odd because she typically had something to say about everything. After about an hour of her silence, I turned to her, half expecting her to be absorbed in her phone or deep into her own work.
Hey, Amy, you okay?
I asked, swiveling in my chair to face her. She looked up from her screen, her eyes wide and frantic. "Oh my God," she muttered under her breath, almost as if she were talking to herself. "Everything okay?" I asked again, more concerned this time. Amy blinked a few times, looked around, and then back at me. I just sent an email to the CEO. Now, I knew Amy was prone to a little bit of accidental chaos, but this was next level. Our CEO, Greg, was known for being kind of a micromanager and would often respond to emails within minutes, whether they were important or not. The last time I had to interact with him directly, I was asked to prepare an entire report for a meeting he had forgotten about until the morning of. It was the kind of email that gave you heart palpitations. "You did what?" I asked, leaning in slightly. She looked guilty. I hit send on a reply-all email to the entire company, including Greg. It was supposed to be a joke, a meme. I thought it would be funny. I stared at her, the dread creeping in. "What was the meme?" I asked cautiously. I forwarded a meme of a cat wearing glasses. It was supposed to be a fun thing, you know? Like, hey, I'm just trying to lighten the mood. But I accidentally replied to everyone instead of just our team. And then I said something like, "When you have a Zoom call with Greg, and pretend you understand anything he says." And it had that image of the cat with glasses, you know? So, yeah. I had no words. This was the kind of mistake you only hear about in the horror stories that circulate through office gossip. A cat meme to the entire company, including the CEO. My palms began to sweat. Did he respond? I asked, dreading the answer. Amy paused for a second. He responded within minutes. Just one word. LOL. I blinked. That's surprisingly chill, considering. Maybe Greg had a better sense of humor than I gave him credit for. Maybe this would blow over. Amy let out a nervous chuckle, and for a second, I thought maybe it was all going to be fine. And then the next email came in. The subject line, important. All company meeting at 3 p.m. today. My stomach dropped. Did he really just schedule an all-company meeting? I asked, my voice going a little higher than I intended. I was beginning to feel the first pangs of impending doom. Amy looked absolutely horrified. I think so. Oh my God. What if he's calling us all in because of the meme? He might fire me, right? I swallowed hard. He won't fire you over a cat meme. I mean, sure, it was a mistake, but it's not the end of the world. Amy was shaking her head. But Greg is so weird about this kind of stuff. Like, he has a whole folder where he keeps employee mistakes. I've seen it. It's full of screenshots. Wait. He has a folder of employee mistakes? I asked, my disbelief evident. That's horrifying. I'm pretty sure he uses it to remind people that no one is above reproach. It's like a silent threat. But I don't know. All I know is that I might be in there now. Just then, Greg's voice boomed through the office speakers, interrupting our conversation. Hey, everyone, we've got an all-company meeting in 10 minutes. Please join the Zoom call. I could feel the tension in the air. The whole office seemed to collectively hold its breath. I looked at Amy, who was staring at her screen like a deer caught in headlights. The meeting started, and Greg appeared on the screen, wearing his usual stuffy blazer, looking entirely too serious for the situation. My anxiety was building. I was about to witness a bloodbath, and I wasn't sure I could handle it. Good afternoon, everyone, Greg said in his usual monotone. I wanted to address something that came to my attention this morning. My heart skipped a beat. I noticed a rather humorous email sent to the entire company today. The silence was deafening. I'm not sure who sent it, Greg continued, but I want to make sure everyone understands something. Humor in the workplace is fine. However, we must remember that professionalism is key, especially when it comes to emails. I could hear Amy's nervous laughter over the Zoom call, but it was clear no one else was amused. Then Greg's gaze turned directly to the camera. Amy, he said, I'm sure it was a slip-up, but we need to be mindful of how we communicate with one another, especially in a professional environment. Amy's face went red as a beet. My hands were sweating like crazy, and I could practically feel her sinking into her chair from embarrassment. But then, Greg did something that I wasn't expecting. He grinned. But hey, I appreciate the humor. It's nice to see someone with a sense of fun around here. Just, maybe next time, don't involve the entire company, yeah? I couldn't believe it. The whole room collectively exhaled. Greg wasn't mad. In fact, he was kind of amused. It was almost like he had been waiting for an excuse to lighten the mood. Amy sighed in relief, her shoulders relaxing. She even managed a nervous smile, and when the meeting ended, she practically bolted from her chair, muttering about how she was going to start double-checking every email from now on. I didn't blame her. I'd probably do the same. So, that's how I ended up spending the rest of my day, mentally preparing myself for the fallout of my coworkers' unintentional office-wide meme disaster. But surprisingly, things didn't get worse. No one else mentioned it. In fact, after that meeting, the atmosphere in the office felt lighter, like the tension that had been building up for months had finally cracked. And as for Amy, she's still here. She didn't get fired. And now, whenever Greg walks by, he just gives her a little nod, like a secret understanding has passed between them. Lesson learned. Sometimes, all it takes to survive a workplace disaster is a little bit of humor, a little bit of humility, and a CEO with a surprisingly good sense of humor. I just hope next time, Amy remembers to double-check who she's sending those memes to. TIFU by accidentally taking my boss's toddler on a road trip. This happened about 2 weeks ago, and I still haven't fully emotionally recovered. For context, I, 32M, work for a mid-sized marketing firm. I'm a project manager, pretty chill job most days. My boss, Steve, not his real name, is a pretty buttoned-up, all-business kind of guy, but he's generally well-liked. He's got 2 kids and constantly talks about how much he values structure and routine. He's the kind of guy who color codes his Outlook calendar and has backups for his backups. You get the idea. Every year, our company does a sort of team-building offsite. It's a 2-day retreat to a lake house about 4 hours away from a city. Not exactly the kind of place you'd expect corporate secrets to be born, but the partners think it's good for morale. It's pretty informal. People carpool. We rent out a few cabins, there's booze, trust falls, someone always ends up in the lake, etc. This year, I offered to drive, and I ended up with a car full of coworkers. Lindsay from HR, my buddy Josh from design, and another newer employee, Marta. We all met in the company parking lot at 8 a.m. that Friday to load up and hit the road. At the same time, Steve was also in the parking lot with his wife and their 2 kids, who he was planning to drop off at their grandparents' house before heading to the offsite. His toddler, about 3 years old, was throwing a classic morning tantrum. Something about the color of her socks. She's screaming, he's juggling coffee, a diaper bag, his laptop, and trying to get her to chill out before strapping her into her car seat. Here's where it all went off the rails. We load up our stuff, and while I'm making sure the trunk is latched, I hear Lindsay yell from the passenger seat, "Hey, did someone leave a little unicorn backpack in the back?" I look, and yep, there's a tiny pink unicorn backpack sitting on the back seat next to Marta. I assume, stupidly, that it must belong to one of Steve's kids and somehow got tossed into our car by mistake. Being the helpful team player I am, I grab the backpack, walk over to Steve's SUV, and open the rear passenger door to return it. I vaguely register that his daughter is still mid-meltdown, and he's now trying to negotiate with her about getting into the seat. The door opens, she looks up at me, sees her backpack, and instantly calms down. "Unicorn," she screams with the unbridled joy only toddlers can muster. She leaps out of her dad's arms, grabs the backpack from my hands, and runs. Straight past me. Right into my car. Before I can say anything, she scrambles into the back seat next to Marta, buckles herself into the booster seat. I later found out it was her travel booster that had been tossed into my car by mistake, and looks up at me with the most innocent expression like, "Okay, I'm ready to go." And here's the moment that haunts me. I looked at Steve, frustrated, juggling a million things, mid-conversation with his wife who was calling him over to help with their baby, and I said, "Hey, she just ran into my car. Should I bring her back?" And Steve, without even turning to look, says, yeah, that's fine. Thanks, man. In hindsight, I realize he probably thought I meant the backpack. So I shrug, hop into the driver's seat, and off we go. About 2 hours into the drive, we stop at a gas station. Lindsay goes in to grab snacks. Josh is DJing from the back seat, and Marta says, "Hey, is anyone else concerned that there's a literal toddler asleep in the back seat?" I laugh. Then I look and realize she's not kidding. I slam on the brakes in park, don't worry. Jump out of the car, open the door, and there she is. Passed out, pink unicorn clutched in her arms, drooling peacefully on her booster seat. Cue full-on panic. I call Steve. He picks up on the first ring. Me. "Hey, where is your daughter?" Steve. "At my in-laws' place." "Why?" Me. "No, I don't think she is." Steve. "What the hell are you talking about?" Me. "Check. Right now." There's a pause. I hear him calling his wife. Then I hear screaming. He comes back on. "You have my kid?" Me. "Yes. I didn't mean to. She just got in, and you said it was fine." We both just sit in silence for a second. The gravity of the situation settles over me like a wet blanket made of lawsuits. Long story short, too late, I immediately turned around and drove straight back. The whole car ride, I was flipping between trying to keep the kid entertained with games on my phone and Googling accidentally kidnapped boss's child, how to not go to jail. Steve and his wife were waiting in the company parking lot when I got there. She looked like she'd been crying. Steve looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 hours. The moment I parked, he opened the door, scooped his daughter up, and just held her. To his credit, he didn't yell at me. Once the kid was safe and things calmed down, we pieced together the whole miscommunication. The backpack, the tantrum, the mistaken, "yeah, that's fine," the overly efficient toddler who buckled herself in like it was just another day at the office. The HR fallout was surprisingly minimal, probably because Lindsay was in the car the whole time and vouched for the fact that it was a genuine accident and that I had tried to confirm before leaving. Still, I've been the butt of every single joke since. My desk was decorated with pink unicorn balloons the Monday after. Someone replaced my desktop background with a Photoshop of me on America's Most Wanted.
And Steve? He's okay.
We've had a couple awkward coffee break conversations. He told me, if I didn't have a second kid already, I might have considered leaving her with you. She apparently had a blast. So yeah, TIFU by taking my boss's toddler on a 200-mile accidental road trip. On the plus side, she now refers to me as Uncle Backpack. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.